Well,
So
we have one of those, don't we?
people can hear us now. Hello, people. Hello,
Okay.
anyone that's
Hi,
here.
people.
I had to stop my co-host from podcasting before the podcast.
Yeah.
There are just so many feelings.
Well, it hasn't helped that I've been like this week has been like I haven't had a lot to do at work, but like work's been very taxing, including like, going into the office, then having a team lunch, and then yesterday, which kind of wrecked me for the rest of the day. So, I'm definitely part of my problem is that I'm definitely just not playing well because I'm low energy, and that's not helping.
I would guess the other part of the problem is that you keep dying from burn spells to the face.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Not a fan of that.
I will say I had a good run with Renathal and Holy DK today. So, format still has some surprises. I posted 2 replays. My first 2 games, I beat a Thief Rogue and a Pure Paladin. They could not keep up with Unholy DK. And I believe both games were over by turn 8. Yes, turn 8, both games.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yep. It's not my list, obviously, but,
Because, I mean, my feeling so far has been, and I guess I'll repeat this when we're recording,
Yeah.
that I would probably love this meta a lot more if Death Knight didn't exist.
So, do you mean the card Frostworm's Fury? Do you mean that card?
No, not that at all. No, I mean because I wouldn't be like the only thing I want to play is Blood Death Knight. And so I've
I
had
see.
to lose a lot
being-
of games trying to figure out how to make that work.
I understand.
Well, trying to play a control deck the first couple of days of a new meta is always kind of a struggle anyway.
Yeah.
Blood is okay too. Just you can see where it's clearly not okay sometimes. That's mostly when you're dying to a bunch of burn spells. I don't know.
Yeah.
I enjoy playing
it's
Blood
Control
because
Priest.
Blood is not Control Priest. That's the thing.
Well,
there's the Baron's Priest list.
It loses to the same things that Control Priest loses to, right?
Right. Although I'm getting towards
proactive.
not losing to those things.
Yeah.
I with Reno, I just need to hang on long enough that eventually I go to 60. And
we have captured all of our personalities very quickly here in the pre-show. Steve is like, it's just Control Priest. I'm like, the Kalos is proactive. And Edel's like, all right, so first you take Reno. And there we go. That is the slice.
My highlight has been Renoing to 70.
I just ate.
It's a 30 card list.
Stop it. Mr. November, it is not Frosty K specifically, but we are going to roundabout discuss pop-off turns. So Frosty K does have that.
I guess that does have.
It
that,
does.
Yeah.
Well, like, do you use your glacial advance before you kill them?
Oh god, I need to survive this.
Well, that's the get your calculator out, turn.
It is. Oh no, you gotta feel it. You gotta feel it right here. That's how you know if you have lethal. Also,
anything. You do math.
Okay, if you play Lady Death Whisper, you don't have to do that much math. Just like take the cards and throw them, and you're probably
clearly not seeing the number of
non-zero part of my
deck.
A non-zero amount of my deck building has been okay. How do I deal with Lady Death Whisper? And I definitely keep Sylvanas in that matchup, and Smothering Starfish.
You are playing a very different game than I've been playing the last few days.
I don't recognize what she's saying either, Steve. Don't you worry. See, I'm in the normal part of the ladder where I beat Paladin Rogue with Unholy DK. Where are you? What are you doing? What a strange world. Yeah, Celestalon has it right. You never count. You just feel it. You feel it right here.
Trust but verify. That's my motto.
If they're ever off, I Reno and they concede.
How did you start out controlling me? Like you're like out priesting me now, and I don't know how I feel about this.
Because it's Blood DK.
Oh my god.
I mean, how would I not like deeply associate with the vampire class. Like, it's
Yeah, I suppose.
Seems like your sort of thing. Okay. So this is just like patch worlds popping off, right? Like that's our show.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Right,
I
that
didn't write
was-
much for the pop-off turn thing. I assumed that would be pretty organic. Who asked
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
question? Who asked that?
That would be a good thing to know.
That is Scoos.
Boosting questions
Okay.
for the cast, right?
It was. It's Scoos.
Okay.
Let's see. Thank you, Grey Lego. Appreciate it, friend. No, it was Raw Ring.
Oh, okay.
Scoos asked why High Legend was different from not High Legend before the patch, and that was a good question as well. I'm gonna put that in. Okay. I'm gonna make myself a reminder.
One day we'll do a bonus episode again, right?
Yeah, we should do that at some
Next
point.
week, I think, is probably going to be year in review / mailbag. So we can post that beforehand because nothing's going to happen. No news.
Right.
Everything is closed
Yeah.
except for my business. So we can just do.
and mine, but
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
but
I
I'm
forget
taking Thursday. I'm taking Thursday and Friday off anyway. So
And do you think next year we'll have a BlizzCon Worlds? Is that
That's
remotely
certainly
possible?
possible. Yeah. Okay.
I mean that could be why they haven't made an announcement up until now, right?
Well, they made the announcement that there will be a BlizzCon, but yeah, and
No,
esports
but I'm
as well.
saying that they.
Oh yeah.
But they've been kind of waffling about the esports announcement, so
Yeah. Well, I blame the
one can
NetEase
hold
deal.
out hope. Well, that too. I mean, that could have thrown a wrench into it, but
All right. Let's start the show.
yeah, let's do that.
I'm testing my recording. Okay, sounds
Recording.
like a recording.
I am recording.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Starting. 3, 2, 1. Starting the show in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you! Never lose hope.
Here for a chat.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, friend!
Raw audio listeners, I want to share with you something that Edelweiss said in chat. I don't know how helpful the claps are. They're not really. They're not because I don't know about you, Edel, I just lined up the end. I just line up the end when everyone does their coin concedes, and that is way easier. But we've been doing them for so long. It's a group
I mean, if
activity.
they're ceremonial claps at this point.
Yeah. It's
Like-
an anachronism.
You
Wait.
have to do it. I mean, we've been doing this for 375 episodes. Well, not us specifically, but some things just have to be tradition.
How do you line up the end hat when I make a cut at 15:45, 1:15, 1:45?
Well, I mean, you just line up to get an approximate thing, and then you can work backwards or forwards. It doesn't matter. It's not too hard to figure out how to line up. Anyways, that's not the point. The point is, hello and welcome to episode 375 of Coin Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, December 22nd in the evening. From Gadsden, New York, it's me, Ridiculous Hat. From Nomergun, Ohio, we have Edelweiss.
Oh,
And from Northern Massachusetts, we have Wiggood.
Hi, happy Hanukkah.
Yes, happy Hanukkah to all who celebrate. And listeners from where you are, thank you so much for being here. We're glad to have you. Thank you for people who leave reviews. Thank you to our patrons. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to Mr. November in chat who reminded me I got to add Arthas to the bumper because they added a new class. So I'm going to do that eventually, not before the end of the year because January 2nd.
You don't do anything before the end of the year. You leave everything alone until the end of the year, and then you do it fresh in the new year. That's the one thing I know from work. So
Yes.
You don't touch anything in December. Nothing breaks in December.
Except the Hearthstone team, apparently, where they just ship a bunch of patches in December. Quite the segue, so we're going to talk about the new... this episode's got a very clear structure, right? It's mostly the giant balance patch. That's most of the news. After that, Worlds happened. And after that, we got a question from our Discord that we are going to talk about and explanations about how to plan your pop-off turns. Like, when do you do it? When do you go in? I think it's a really good question. Thank you, Raw Rank, for asking that. But Life and Ladder, I'll go first. I'll go first. They reduced maximum health totals, so minions into burn is good again. So I'm chilling, having a good time. Co-host, who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Steve.
Oh.
You probably know where this is going, listener. You probably know where this is going.
So minions into burn is not my favorite thing, because that means that I'm not playing the decks that I want to play. And I was having a grand old time with Plague Spreader Priest before the nerfs, and then the nerfs happened, and Priest is 11 out of 11, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I've tried Frost Death Knight, which worked until it didn't. I tried Shock Spitter Hunter, which didn't work until it didn't work. For me, I know people are doing well with it. I don't know what I'm doing with it. I tried a few different tweaks on Aggro Mage today that I had like a 30% win rate with. So I've just ended up going back to Big Spell Mage, because like at least that I know I can't screw that up, right? But it's like I've had games and I've been losing in like the most spectacular ways, and I'm sure I'm misplaying because like I'm tired. Like it's been a very long week, and like I haven't really had like a focused time to be able to like learn any of these decks. But like I filled up a board against a Blood Death Knight with Aggro Mage and lost to 2 successive generated Frostworm's Furies from a Blood Death Knight.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't play my Aegwynn minion, so I couldn't actually burn them down. It's like that's the kind of thing that's been happening to me. Like, and it, I'm sure that I'm misplaying. I'm sure I mean, it was my own fault for filling up the board and you know, not assuming that they had the second Frostworm's Fury after they already played one. You know, I guess that's on me. But yeah, it's been a rough few days.
Steve.
Yeah.
That's not on you, and you know it. Stop it.
It's been rough. So I mean, and it's mainly been rough because there's not really any control decks in the meta that I've seen. So it's, you know, this isn't the kind of game I want to play, right? I mean, not the game I want to play. It's not the style of meta that I enjoy, is what I want to say. I'm still playing plenty. I'm just trying to find my footing, and I just haven't landed on anything yet.
So hopefully I'll be able to help you out soon.
I'm sure.
Been tanking
this
a
is
bunch.
The secret tech. I'm sure this is
working on
This is going to be the solution to all my problems.
blood DK, with one of the priorities being able to beat Frost Death Knight. See, I beat my Aggro Mage opponent. I didn't even need the Reno that game. I just,
Listener,
was sitting
you heard
on
her
43.
correctly. She said, I didn't even need the Reno. That is what was said out loud. She is being serious. This is not a bit.
So-
this is not a joke.
I've
Would
been
we ever
figuring
doubt
out-
at all that this is a bit? Like, come on.
I've been figuring out the right number of cards to still have duplicates of. I right now have 2 Blood Boils, 2 of the 3-cost weapon, and what was the final thing?
No Munchers?
Oh, Vampiric Blood. 2 Vampiric
Oh, yeah,
Bloods.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, you gotta have 2 Vampiric Bloods. And because that's like the whole point, is you play as many Vampiric Bloods as possible. And then when you play Reno, they're like, wait, why are you at 70? Because so frequently, Vampiric Blood really is imitating armor, because you gain the life, and it's hard to gain so much life afterwards that you actually see your maximum life total after playing Vampiric Blood. And I might want to put back the second like Twisting Nether minion, but so far it's been okay without. I just find that you need the duplicates of the things that you want early game, because those like otherwise you die, right? If you're not consistent in terms of being able to clear early stuff, then you just die. So I have a rune forging also to draw that weapon there's 2 of. I always keep Vampiric Blood, and I pretty much always keep Blood Boil. So it's like things that I would want to keep anyway, I can have duplicates of.
I guess if you ran
And-
Talon, you could run 2 of the Twisting Nether guy, right?
I like it's
listen
still
to
a
me.
30,
Listen to me. Like trying
it's
to
still a
try-
30 card list, right? So
Uh,
it's yeah, the space is still tight. I'm experimenting with I swapped out Mutinous for Theatar just so I at least have some game against Mine Warlock, which I'm really not enthused is back, but that is one where you actually need to be able to hit something that's not a minion. So even though I prefer Mutinous as a disruption card, Theatar I think might just be the better one to have a shot there. Maybe it's too low of what I'm playing against for it to be worth it. Anyway, we'll see.
May I offer you another suggestion? How about Plague Spreaders?
No, I don't want my things getting
Oh,
plagued.
It's never a problem.
It's
It'll never hit the
absolutely a
Reno. Don't worry
problem.
about it.
Look, I have Patchwork Wicked Good. I don't want Plague Spreader. I just want to brand Patchwork. But yeah, it's been better, honestly, since I went for the Reno version. Primarily because of Frost Death Knight. Frost Death Knight is especially good at like continuing to pump damage and then having a big finisher. So you kind of like you hit a point where it's like unless I get up to that full vampiric blooded life total, I'm not gonna survive their pop off. And usually what I want to do is get them to do the okay, well I'll just Frostworm's Fury for a bit and whittle them down and then we do the pop off. And you kind of if you can get that timing right, 1 or 2 Frostworm's Furies in, then you just go like asphyxiate Reno or something like that. And then the concede comes out. But a lot of it can involve finding a way to either silence or steal Lady Death Whisper, because
That card's pretty
I
good. I hear.
definitely have lost to like 6 Glacial Advance. It was was a little rough.
It's a lot. I have found like I had I think the first game I picked up post nerf the Superior David's Frostless day 1. And I think like my first or second game I killed on turn 5 because you just Death Whisper and then sometimes that's it. Sometimes that's just it. Like I don't really love the guild traders, but you kind of need them sometimes, and every so often it's a coin Death Whisper on 4 into Guild Trader on 5, horn, advance, you're dead. Like that's just it. So yeah, it's
Oh jeez.
I envision that there will be some pretty vocal concerns about Frost. This is not me saying it's too good. I'm not doing that right now.
Yeah.
But it's a deck with a lot of damage, mana cheating, and board freezes that I can get multiple copies of. We're going to hear about that.
Yeah. It's Freeze Mage. I mean, that's basically what it is. It's Freeze Mage.
No, it is not.
It's closer to, like, to Ungoro, Burn Mage, Gunther Mage, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's, they nerfed Snowfall Guardian, then printed Snowfall Guardian with charge that you can copy. Like, people are going to have feelings about that. And I will tell you, as someone that's been playing a lot of Frost DK, like, I enjoy playing it, glad it's in the game. But when I'm playing against it and I get Snowfall Guardians multiple times, those feelings are well known to me, and they are not necessarily the most positive. It's not the only thing going on right now, and it's easy to beat if you want to beat it. So I don't have a problem with it currently, but it's also novel, and it's easy to recognize the novel thing doesn't get quite as much hate. Plus, everyone has a lot of feelings right now. Moxall in the chat is saying that Kibler died in turn 6 from 30 because the opponent had double Death Whisper. Kibler's going to hate this meta so much. Oh my gosh, he's going to hate it so much.
That hasn't even been what he's been complaining about. He's been complaining about Thief Rogue because he's a man of culture. And
but I know Kibler.
The potion belt discounts the null while you're Maestrid. That's been what he's been upset about lately.
Huh.
Yep. Understandable. But I will say Kibler has some very clear preferences. and I've noticed this pattern. If there's damage from hand, he's upset, and if there's less, then he's happier. And this meta has a lot of damage from hand. Quite a bit. We're already talking about the meta. Let's play a news bumper and then keep doing that.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
So, the reason we're talking about new standards because they patched. And we were not sure last week if they were gonna. And they did. I'm glad they did. Yes, you were right. You're right.
And
We
boy,
didn't
did
even
they.
make a bet. Yeah, they changed... how many cards did they change? It's a large number. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 11 nerfs and 9 buffs. 20 cards. So... it's worth noting. So we, long-time Discord member, patron, fan of the show, Scoos3 in the Discord asked a really great question. Asking, let me make sure I read this exactly because I think it's a good question. This is before the nerfs. The tier list from high legend to every other rank is very different. Why is this? And if we look at the decks that were at Worlds, right, we talked about them last week. Quest EH, their Miracle Rogue, Boon Priest. Right, those are the three main ones, and they all got hit in meaningful ways. Those decks didn't see as much play at other ladder brackets outside of high MMR. Now, doesn't mean that they shouldn't have been changed. Means the changes might be a little bit less impactful, though the Death Rattle Rogue in particular, that one was played at Worlds, but also was a bit more accessible and definitely had some success. And Druid was not really all that great at high levels, but got a change anyways. Change that I don't really like, but, it's neither here nor there.
Yeah. That seemed like it was a seeing around the corners change, though, right? Because, if you were to nerf all this stuff and leave Druid alone, it was just going to be Druid Stone, probably.
I didn't say they should leave Druid alone. That's not what I said.
No, but you're saying, but, I'm saying that, yeah.
We'll talk about it when we get there. I went in on Angry Chicken yesterday about the Anubricon nerf and how I hated it, and I will summarize that discussion today, but there are many of you out there, thank you very much, who listen to both of my shows. I'm not going to make you sit through that twice. But either way, most of the changes in here are definitely to high MMR Legend decks, and they're really different for a bunch of reasons. Typically what you see at high Legend that doesn't translate as well. Garrote Rogue is kind of the quintessential example here. You have to have high technical demand for execution. You have to have a lot of branching decision trees. And you have to have multiple outcomes to victory beyond just the main plan, where you can do a little bit here, a little bit there. All of that plays together, the decks that we just talked about. Miracle Rogue, Boon Priest, and Quest EH all had very high execution requirements, a lot of math, a lot of planning, a lot of macro game planning, and then sometimes you would just have to veer off of your main plan and hope. There have been games with Boon Priests where I would just I would go in once and then have to figure out some other way to get there. I mean, it's a Sunwell deck now. So you sometimes just have to make your own victory plan. So the higher execution requirements and the higher planning requirements, they just don't translate as well when players are a little bit less familiar with what they're going to face, or maybe they aren't quite as skilled at the technical execution. Or if they're used to playing decks with a clear plan A, and something like Quest Demon Hunter, there are a lot of different ways to play it. But if you were just chasing the quest reward, you weren't going to get there because the deck didn't even want to complete the quest. It wanted to complete the first two steps and kill you. But I would say that most players, they look at it, they assume I have a quest, I should finish the quest because the reward is the reason I'm doing it.
Right.
So, if you're not sure about why a lot of these cards were changed, it's because they were seeing a lot of play. I mean, at Worlds, it was pretty easy to figure out these decks were kind of busted. But they may not have reflected your personal ladder experience. They were worth changing. Or, when you hear me say, I don't like the Druid change, if you are saying to yourself, I lost a Druid all the time, I saw it all the time, I really didn't like it, understand that. And that's a very reasonable and real experience that a lot of people had. But it wasn't translating as well in this case to higher levels of ladder. So you may see pros also saying things like, Bran isn't even that good, or why did they nerf Druid, or whatever. This particular expansion seems to have spawned a lot of discourse, and this patch didn't actually slow that down, it just shifted who was saying what. So let's get started, shall we? First, we have the Demon Hunter nerfs. Unleash fell from Mana Thirst 4 to Mana Thirst 6. Relic of Dimension from 5 mana to 6 mana. The dev comment, the Mana Thirst and Unleash fell felt like a non-factor that was almost always on anyway when you wanted to play the card. This change makes the card more interesting and helps reel in a Demon Hunter power outlier. Relics are prevalent and powerful. We like them and didn't want to fully revert their power level, so we're just touching the strongest relic to make it a little less explosive. And I forgot to mention the dev comment at the beginning. Balance changes at this point in the expansion are made with early, somewhat limited data. For these changes, we like to address the most egregious power outliers and play patterns that we know we don't like. Cards that we're likely to adjust down the line anyway as the meta evolves over time. We hope and expect to make some spicier changes in our next balance patch once we have more data. So Steve, to your point, if Nubricon is in here, it's entirely possible they were expecting this card to be evil. So, yeah, I don't know. But what do we think about the Demon Hunter nerfs? Why don't we start there? Edel, what do you think?
So it's interesting. If you look at Legend top 1K, like Quest Spell DH is still in there, and I think part of that is because you can still go face with Unleash Fell. And so in terms
It's worth
of
noting, hold on a second. I want to be clear. Are you looking at top 1K?
Yeah.
The top says Quest Spell Demon Hunter. Quest Fell Demon Hunter is in tier 3 because for some reason they break out the Sinful Brand deck as a separate deck. So let's strike this from the record. Let's go to just click Legend. Just click Legend and scroll down.
Yeah.
So it's actually, we should leave this in. Listener, if you have HS Replay Premium, something about this expansion has been really rough over in the HS Replay side. If you click top 1K, they are over-algorithming whatever. Quest Spell DH is number 1. That is not the deck that got nerfed. Quest Fell is, and it's down in tier 3.
All right.
It's so dumb. The Quest Spell list, by the way, that's the one with, it plays the new weapon, it plays Faldora Warband, and Sinful Brand. It's the Sinful Brand OTK deck, which, if you click popular decks, there's nothing there because it doesn't have the sample size, but for some reason it shows up in the meta tab. Steve, hold it in, buddy. I know you're a data architect. Hold it in.
All right.
I'm just glad I haven't had to update the dashboard for a little while because I don't even want to deal with this kind of level of classification. I probably have no hair left.
Well, all right. I'm glad that it's doing much worse than it looked like from a glance. But there were still some complaints about it, right? Because I think some people have still died to that thing and been upset. It's substantially worse, I think, primarily from Relic going to 6. I mean, that is just a massive deal in terms of how quickly it can kill you. But also, it's a really aggro meta, so if your lifesteal is 2 turns later, that's a really, really big deal. So it gained more of a weakness against aggressive decks. It's just that it is still capable of doing the, Unleash Fell spell damage thing to clear a bunch of stuff and then kill you. But I haven't seen really any of this since. I think initially I saw some people still testing it out, and I outlived it, which was something that was harder to do before. And that's because Relic of Dimensions is that much slower.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically Skull of Gul'dan, right? And Skull of Gul'dan had to get nerfed from 5 to 6. I'm kind of surprised that it took this long, but this was, it was, I mean, you were getting 4 cards discounted generally off of that. So, and often the same kind of discount that you would get from Skull of Gul'dan. So I think moving that to the same mana cost as Skull to Gul'dan makes sense. And yeah, just giving a little bit more time to get under the Demon Hunter. I mean, 4 to 6 is not that much of a difference, but it is enough of a difference that they can't just heal to 30 against an aggro deck, like an aggro druid. Not that that's necessarily anything I've seen lately, but like an aggro druid could probably get there by turn 5 before the lifesteal comes online and undoes everything.
Imp Warlock, I think, is an example of a deck that really needed this change. I have played with and against this card. It is more interesting. You have to make the choice. Do I clear now or wait a turn or 2 to heal, but I might die? It is more interesting as opposed to just being, on turn 4, I play Arcanist, Unleash fell. Okay, all your stuff is dead, and I'm at full health. It just happened. It was just always there. And now it has some tension, has some play to it. And I agree, Steve. The next time, Team 5. Next time, if you're going to print a Demon Hunter card that draws cards and discounts mana, just start it at 6. Just start it at 6. That's all you got to do. Right? We don't need to start at 5 and pretend. Just start at 6. Need for Greed? That draws cards, sometimes discounts itself. That's okay. That can be 5.
Yeah.
That can be 3. It can be 5. If you draw it as 3, that's fine. But if it's more, if it discounts, 6 mana. Trust. Big trust. It's worth noting as well that Spell, Fel, Rel, Demon Hunter, still a good deck. Right at this very moment, still a good deck. Not as popular, because it's no longer quite as gross, but it beats a lot of things. It's a totally reasonable thing to play right now. Okay, so... Oh, it's right here. We have to start talking about this already. A Nubricon.
You thought you were going to stall a little bit longer?
Yeah, but the game is over much more quickly than I realized, so I guess it's a metaphor for this patch.
Jeez.
A Nubricon went from gain 8 armor this turn, your minions cost armor instead of mana, and now it's your next 3 minions cost armor instead of mana. It is worth noting, this doesn't eliminate the combo, it just slows it way, way down, because if you play Astalor 2 before this, and then you do Bran and Nubricon, you do Astalor 5, Astalor 8, Astalor 8, that is enough. But that means you need access to 11 mana and to have played Astalor 2 before this, as opposed to, get there quickly and just fire everything out with no setup. You require setup, it takes longer. The deck is worse. Also, spoilers, Renathal got nerfed from 40 health to 35 health. Really big deal for Druid. So, I am curious about people's feelings on this, because I have plenty of my own. The comment, the Bran and Nubricon combo is not a big win rate outlier, but it represents a play pattern we don't like. We wanted to reduce lethality and remove the ability for the combo to let players dump their whole hand, while still allowing for ramp strategies. Talk to me, Steve.
I feel like we keep nerfing around Bran. Like it feels like if we're doing all of these changes because Bran is in core. And because if you don't have Bran as part of that combo, it's fine, right? Like you're not getting double Astalors, you're not doubling up the procs. It's 16 damage. It's fine, right? But because Bran is here, now we're having to change this. And I mean, yeah, maybe you shouldn't be able to go infinite, but I mean, you do run out of space sometimes. But it's like every time that there's a deck building challenge, it's Bran and something that does damage. So it was Denathrius before, now it's Astalor, right? But there's the one suspect at every murder scene, and we can't seem to catch him.
I will say.
I would argue.
Go ahead.
Are we going to say the same thing? That Guff is also a suspect here?
I sure was. I sure was going to say that.
Yeah, but Gus rotating in 4 months, and a Nubricon's
so
going to be here for a year and change, right?
But Bran's rotating at the same time.
Well, yeah. I mean, theoretically, they could revert a Nubricon at rotation if they found that it was okay. And maybe it opens up enough design space that they wanted to make this change anyway. But it just seems like Bran's like the new Edwin, right? It just keeps dodging everything.
I mean, so here's the thing. I think Bran is just so much more interesting than the things that he kills people with. Yes. And that, to me, is worth preserving it. Because Bran School Teacher on 9 is one of my favorite things to do in Death Knight. Because it's very frequently how I get like an extra 2 to 4 Vampiric Bloods, or I've
Vampiric Bloods.
Yeah, or I clear a board. I had no removal, but it was turn 9, and I went Bran School Teacher and played like double Asphyxiate, double Heart Strike, or something like that, and cleared 3 huge minions. So I really appreciate the preservation of Bran, because I like it as a value tool. In classes that don't exceed 10 mana or cheat with things like Anubricon, it's pretty cool to be able to have inevitability in a box without having to add, a crazy amount of stuff to be able to go like Bran Astalor and have like 2 or 3 of the later Astalor. And you're not doing it all in one turn. You just have, over a few turns, you're going to have these 16 damage pings. Lets you, dodge some disruption from other classes because you generate enough win conditions that even if they mutinous a few of them, or imposing patchwork or something, like you've still got stuff there. I just really, really like the flexibility. And the things that have made people upset have been your Shock Spitters, your Denathrius, or in the case of Druid, Astalor as well. And Astalor, I think, is probably one of, if not my favorite cards in the set, because it's just a much more reliable and flexible win condition than Denathrius ever was. You get to have this thing to play at different stages of the game. It works well in both control decks and in some kind of slower things, especially in Rogue, right, where you can shadow step the various stages. I really enjoy those things. Sometimes you can do something silly even in Death Knight because of Horn of Winter, but in general, I guess the summary there is just that I have enjoyed still being able to do those more just sort of value game things with Bran.
Bran Mograine.
Yeah.
Bran Patchwork. Like, it's... Okay,
Yeah.
So, real talk here, like, I also thought Anubricon was cool. My biggest issue with this nerf is that the play experience sucks with Crypt Keeper. That if you have a Crypt Keeper, you literally can't play it because you have to spend your armor and other stuff first, and you don't have any armor left. Or if you play Crypt Keeper first, you eat the Anubricon buffs. It doesn't work with the cards in the same set. It reminds me of the tension with Big Spell Mage on original launch, where like you had all these cards that just did not work together. The 8-mana Parrot,
the weapon, yeah.
The 8-mana Parrot, Ink Set. You had all these cards that just didn't make any sense together, and they were all released at the same time. They turned Anubricon into that. But Bran is fun, and it's only when people die to it that they complain, but they've been doing that for a while. He's going to leave in a few months.
That's
I don't know.
usually when what happens when people play Bran. Like, I agree. Like, I'm a control player too. I like the interesting things that Bran can do. 90% of the time, it's Bran Astalor, Bran Denathrius, Bran something stupid from Rogue. I don't know what the hell it is, but something annoying, right?
Rogue isn't playing Bran right
Shockspitter,
now.
Bran
I
Syracuse
understand.
Cultist, right? Like, it's those types of things that are and that's why people are. I think that's why everybody's so upset, because like normally when Bran's coming out, it's for some sort of lethal that's coming out of nowhere, or it's some sort of like mass like extinction BS event, right? That's coming out that's just gonna make you angry that you lost to it, that you wouldn't have lost to if Bran wasn't there, right?
But I mean,
like, Bran Patchwork is not a thing that you generally enjoy being on the other side of.
Yeah,
you're
sure,
a control player, Steve.
like,
You played that stuff. Don't tell me that you don't want to do that.
Oh, listen, this is the same reason that I was playing Renathal, even though I hated it, because if you're playing a fatigue matchup, and you don't have 40 cards in your deck, then you lose, right? You do things that you don't like to win the game, but I don't like playing Bran. I don't even like having it in my hand and just kind of holding it for something, I don't love those play patterns. Like, I mean, I remember the days when I was playing Cthulhu Warrior and like going like coin Bran 8-drop to shuffle 2 Cthulhu's back in my deck. Like, I've done those things too. I don't have clean hands. I'm just saying that I think that we've had to make so many changes to cards because Bran abuses them and abuses them fairly consistently, that it just feels like now, like you said, like it's messing up the synergy in that class because Bran's there, right?
But let's honestly look at what was nerfed around Bran. First of all, Kael'thas. Pretty sure you said that, Steve. You saw that card and you're like, this not okay. Nerf this. Change that. Denathrius. Probably also a good change.
Yeah.
Anubricon is the one I'm defending, but here's the change that I wanted to see. Change Astalor 8 to Manathirst 8, Manathirst 10. Make him not a battle cry anymore. Problem solved. And then you
just
can
make the whole effect Manathirst.
Manathirst 8 for the first line, Manathirst 10 for the second. You remove
So
the
you get the armor later.
Well,
just the damage.
The damage just doesn't double with Bran. That's it. It's the only change. You just change it so it doesn't have a battle cry anymore. You just make the damage not double with Bran. And then Anubricon can still
48. I mean, it's not. Yeah, it's not gonna. It's because you're still gonna get
32.
Wait, no,
right?
It's a lot less.
32.
32.
Because the 8 doubles, right? So it's
the 16 doubles.
It's 8.
It was 64 damage.
It was 64 damage. It would be 48 because the first half of it would double. Or
there's no battle cries.
No battle cries. They're all Mana Thirst. Got it. Okay. Yeah.
So it would be.
See, that's too elegant for my brain on a Thursday night.
It just like
that would work actually. Yeah.
Make the base ability Mana Thirst because all the other uses of Bran are clearly worth keeping him around. I'm making that argument because they are keeping him around. If there wasn't some value to Team 5, if there wasn't some value in this card, then they would have just booted him. But there has to be some reason why Bran is kept around, and I assume it is for the fun. Yeah. And I do think Bran Schoolteacher is fun. I think Bran Mograine is fun. I think there are a lot of reasons it's fun, and the card is not highly played right now, at least at the high MMR bracket. There are other places where it sees play. But as of right now, this just constrains Anubricon to only being a combo card. You can only play him as your combo. You can't tempo him out really and get anything out of it. You either hold him for the combo or you lose with it, and it has a lot of anti-synergy with the existing cards that he was printed with, and I don't like that at all. And I don't think it's necessary to go out of our way for it.
I get your anti-synergy argument that it's a little weird that you can't play your 0 mana thing. But I would argue that there's still going to be lots of ways of getting armor, and then, or at least they printed other ways of getting armor so that you can play that 0 mana taunt out earlier, which is usually when you want it anyway. And it is still pretty high tempo if you go Anubricon like under king, something else, right? Or play like playing 3 big minions that you did because of armor stuff is still pretty silly. And I say under kings because they generate armor, and that was a thing that commonly people would do because they could, right? Is you under king, and then if you rush it into something that's less stats in play or fewer stats in play, to then have the pings go off. But I think this is a little just forward thinking. It's like there's still going to be some kind of combo-y things you can do with it, but when you get to just kind of go infinite if you have enough armor, which with Earthen Scales they tended to, then it's just really spooky. And the other thing is it doesn't address, and I'm sorry, Joss, that this got killed because you were the only one doing it. But the quest version, right?
Yeah.
That would definitely have still been a thing if the change had been somehow different here, because Guff makes armor for himself, and so you still go Bran, Guff, Zola, Guff, and attack people for 48.
I mean, I would imagine this is the kind of thing we've heard pretty definitively. Bran's not going to make it through rotation, right, in core.
Yeah.
So like it's perfectly possible this is a temporary change, just until Bran goes out, and then they revert it back, right, and then all is well with the world.
Yeah, it's possible, and really, I want to emphasize as well. Bran right now is not a power outlier. Wasn't before they made this change. It's the deck that he's in.
It's not a power outlier. It's a feels outlier.
Sure.
Right.
I understand people's concern about it. I totally do, and I understand your concern about it.
But there are many of us that have many, many good feels about Bran as well.
That also, yes. For other things. This is the thing. Listeners, this is why Bran is still in the game. Because of my 2 co-hosts representing the 2 worlds of Hearthstone of I want to do cool stuff that isn't necessarily evil, and Steve, I understand your feeling of I'm tired of him doubling things that are usually pretty evil. Understood. Totally get it. And they also were in kind of a rough spot here where I'm pretty sure that the Renathal nerf was enough to kill Druid by itself. But if they shipped a patch without a Ramp Druid nerf listed, without a card with a brown border in this patch notes, the discourse would be unbearable. It would be not okay. They needed Druid to be less popular.
Also, Luna was playing a top 100 with post nerf 30 card Druid with the combo. So I'm pretty sure that it wouldn't have taken long for somebody. I mean, I was already playing 30 card Druid before the first set of nerfs. So, and that deck was fine. That took me to Legend. So I'm pretty sure if they didn't make this change, that 30 card Ramp Druid would be a meta deck.
I mean, it's still a polarizing thing, right? Like, there are certain things where it's just really hard to beat someone that has double your mana.
Yeah. And 60 armor.
Yeah. So, hey, that's Druid. The real Druid nerf is Renathal, but this is the only Druid card that got nerfed, but the Druid is in trouble right now. So, anyways, some priest nerfs. The real priest nerf also was Renathal for one of my co-hosts, but the scammy priest nerf. Boon of the Ascender went from 4 to 5. Priest of Valish went from 0 to 1. Boon Priest is not common or overly powerful at most levels of play, but it is the best performing deck at High Legend, and it wins through frustrating play patterns. We wanted to give it a couple small adjustments to make it more in line with the rest of the meta, especially after the other adjustments in this patch. I haven't found too many people that are mad that Boon Priest got nerfed. In fact, I have found none.
Yeah. A couple people, I think, were liked Naga Priest, and those are kind of collateral damage.
Me like Naga
Yeah.
Priest, but you can't nerf something that nobody's playing. I played it before this patch, and it was fine, but no one is playing it, and also, like, I wouldn't now because Frostworm's Fury. I would not because Frostworm's Fury. I do not want to play against Snowfall Guardian with my minion buff deck. I just don't want to do it. I'm uninterested. And like, Soul Sealer is not a lot of fun either, for what it's worth. That's also not a very fun card to face. Like, we win before that usually, but they have Obliterate, non-scaling Obliterate now. You don't want to face that.
And Asphyxiate too. Yeah.
Yeah, this Blood DK single target removal situation, Edelweiss, calm it down. I know you're excited. Calm it down.
The Obliterate change made me so happy.
It's so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, either way, Boon Priest, good riddance. Don't have a lot of nice things to say about it. I had to play it the day before the nerfs went live because I was seeing so much Quest Demon Hunter, and it was working, but I wasn't happy. So I'm glad the deck is gone.
Yeah, and I mean those decks have really barely changed over 2 expansions, right? I mean, certainly Naga Priest, like, since it got Cathedral, basically, like, there's no reason to change anything in that deck. Not
Cathedral, Pelagos, and Boon. Yeah.
Yeah, and Boon Priest basically just slotted in Animate Dead and went to town. So it was just the same deck that people were, again at high legend, but that's still something that you wouldn't be able to touch everything else and not touch that because it would just be there.
Yep. So deck is worse now. Some people are still doing okay with it at very, very high legend, but you will not see this as much. Good. Also, things that used to be performing at high legend and that now aren't, Rogue, mostly. They nerfed 4 Rogue cards. Necrolord Draka, 4 to 5. Sinstone Graveyard, 2 to 3. Sketchy Information, 3 to 4. Forsaken Lieutenant, 2 to 3. There are 2 Rogue decks that we want to adjust this patch. Death Rattle Rogue is a deck that can do some cool, fun things, but is too fast for most decks to deal with. We don't want to destroy those synergies, but we do want to slow them down. Similarly, Miracle Rogue makes for very bad play experiences when their pop-off turns are too powerful too soon. I think it is fun and thematic for Rogue to have those turns where they play a bunch of cards and get rewarded for it, but we want to slow that turn down a little. I guess I'm supposed to have opinions on this as the resident Rogue player. Good. Like, I understand that the class right now is going to be pretty heavy on Thief Rogue all the time. The other experiments are going to die off. I am a little bummed that Thief Rogue is the only way to play. But Draka was not okay. Sinstone Graveyard was not okay. And these decks were warped pretty badly around super all-in turns. and then just scamming in ways that your opponent can't deal with it. It was the same for Death Rattle Rogue. The deck was only appealing because it was too fast. It was only appealing. Like, it did some cool stuff. I had some cool stories out of it, but a lot of those stories started with like 4/5/4s on turn 4 or some crap. Or a turn 5 Neptulon. And I want the stories to be about cool synergies, but I don't want it to be the main appeal of a deck being that it does things too fast. Because that's not a compelling strategy. It's just a balance outlier. So
Well, it's a meta warper when it does that, right? Like then the whole meta warps around that.
Death Rattle Rogue, Blood DK was playing 2 Starfishes to deal with Death Rattle Rogue. Like, come on, buddy. That's not. If you see that's not okay.
And also Viper, not for Death Rattle Rogue, but for Draka.
Yeah, it's just.
I mean, Plague Spreader was partially a reaction to that too, right? I mean, between that and like hitting the Jason Quest Demon Hunter, right? Like those were the main use case. That's why you're not seeing Plague Spreader Priest anymore. I mean, yeah, the Renathal nerf hurt a little bit, but like it's not being played because the decks that it was good against were Boon Priest, Rogues, and Quest Demon Hunter, and those decks aren't
doesn't have
around
any food
anymore.
left,
And
right, like it had a full
exactly.
table and now it has nothing to eat.
Yeah.
Yep, it's whenever you see Quest Priest or some other control priest good, that usually means something is wrong with the format, because it means Shadowward Ruin is a format-defining card, along with Shard of the Naru. And anytime your format is defined by, I need to kill a bunch of huge things on turn 4, or I'm going to die, not healthy. So, I hope Rogue gets some stuff that is in the realm of this power fantasy of playing a bunch of cards and winning because of it. And let me tell you, I love Edwin Defias Kingpin at 4/4. Because when you get to have those good Edwin turns, it feels really cool. You draw a bunch of cards, you make a bunch of stuff, but like it's turn 6 or whatever, turn 7, sure. But Rogue was only competing on turn 4, turn 5, make these giant boards, and go like Shadow Step your Mailbox Dancers and go all in and whatever. At a certain point, the novelty wears out pretty fast there, and there's no generation. It's just the same thing every time. So I hope Concoctions can lead into a successful strategy, if not this expansion, then the next one, when Wildpaw Knoll also rotates out, and I'm ready for that. I'm ready for Wildpaw Knoll to rotate out, because I am not playing Thief Rogue right now. Like, it is fine, but I'm just uninterested. I understand for the Rogue players that were having fun with all the cool broken stuff, but, like, it wasn't healthy. It wasn't the right thing to have in the game.
And I mean, after you've done it a few times, right? It's not that exciting anymore, right? That's just kind of
There's
the
a
thing
puzzle
that you have to do.
element. But yeah, it's not... the novelty at least wore off for me. I know that it didn't for everyone. I know that Rogue players are concerned right now that like the only thing we have to do is Wildpaw Knolls. I get that concern. And I haven't been playing a lot of Rogue. There are other classes that are scratching the itch for it right now, but Concoctions are going to be good, especially in a 4-set meta. They're already strong cards. They're just not a deck yet. And that's okay. But I wouldn't have wanted any of these cards to stick around if the only way that Rogue could exist is in a way that scams people. So, yeah. And then finally, Prince Renathal went from 40 health to 35, deck size is still 40. Renathal had its run. He's the most played card in the game, and the meta has warped around him for a long time, so we're making this change to open the meta back up. At the same time, we know he's one of the most popular cards we've ever made, so we wanted to preserve his core effect as an option for his fans. My goodness. The feelings people have around Renathal are just... you can replace the Rorschach test in an average psychological evaluation with, like, what do you think of the Renathal change? And people will just project all over it.
Is this the part where I'm supposed to be upset?
You don't
Why
have to
would
be.
we?
Okay,
Why would we
I'm
be
not.
upset?
I'm good. I'm fine with. I actually, the only thing that I would say, the only note that I would have about this is I'd almost rather they just removed it entirely, only because like, if I'm playing any sort of a control deck, I still have to play it in order to deal with fatigue matchups, right?
I don't think that's true. I think you could just have a way to kill people.
I was trying to play. There was a 30 card Blood Death Knight on like day 1 or day 2. And I tried to play it, except I am not at the ranks where people are not still playing Renathal. And I actually had a game where I had taken their Mograine and then brand my own Mograine and still lost because I hit fatigue that much sooner. Like they generated another Mograine because of course they had, but like so it was like their 3 damage to my 9 damage, and it was not enough. And I still lost that game because the card difference was that much. So, but I mean, I think that it's still like it in the form that it's in, it does what it's supposed to do, which is it allows people who really want to play with 40 cards in their deck to do it, but it reduces the advantage that's incurred. I think the main problem that we're starting to see is that a lot of the cards that were balanced around players having 40 health. And so now we're seeing just like a lot of these big flashy lethals earlier than maybe we would have, because the damage output had to be higher to accommodate that. But I'm sure that'll shake out eventually, sooner rather than later.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like a lot of times what you make up for in consistency is better. And like,
Yeah, I do
there are gonna be games where it feels bad because someone's still playing Renathal, but they hit their whatever first, right? They're still managed to hit the important card in the matchup, and you don't. Like, I did lose to a Renathal Blood DK because they had Mograine on curve, and I didn't lose because of fatigue. I lost because they had Mograine on curve and I didn't. I did way more healing. I did way more damage, but I didn't have that 3 going every turn. I think it's just like people like playing more cards, and so some people are still gonna do that. But to say that you have to play it because of the occasions where you face someone who is and they win in a fatigue mirror, like I can't really.
You just
agree
run
with
out of
that.
stuff, right? Like that's the
Yeah,
problem.
but I don't think it's enough matches
Well,
for
I'm
it to
hoping
be
that it
worth
will. I'm
playing.
hoping it'll get there, right? Like it wasn't early on because people were still trying to see if it was good or not, and I'm still my MMR is still a disaster enough that I'm playing against people who are playing Renathal decks on the regular. So
Mostly the Renathal decks I see are the Thief Rogues, and I started seeing even fewer and fewer of the Renathal versions of that. But I think at this point, like, you need the extra 10 cards to be beneficial to you somehow for it to be worth it. You can't just be adding more discoverers or whatever. There needs to be a real reason. And that can either be, well, you have enough card draw that it doesn't matter, or, I mean, I don't think we're seeing any Presto or Druid, but like that deck had a reason.
there was like a
because-
day,
yeah,
Presto Druid just needed more Kazakhstan rolls. You
Right,
you
exactly.
needed more chances
Yeah.
at Kazakhstan. It was very, very clear.
yeah. But I mean,
So-
like Pepperidge Farm remembers when we were playing like South Sea Scoundrel and Baron's Priest just to put the opponent another turn ahead of fatigue, right? Like when
That's
you are
not good.
playing. Well, yeah, I mean, when you're playing an attrition style deck, though, like that does matter if you expect to run into more than the occasional other attrition style deck, which at least early on when I was trying to do that, I was, and then I gave up on that and just got to the kill 'em phase of the meta, more quickly than I might have otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's a mental thing, because when I look at everything here, it's Aggro Mage, Curse Imp Warlock, Shockspitter Hunter, Spell Demon Hunter, Beast Hunter, Pure Paladin, Big Spell Mage, Frost DK. Like, they're all things that I just need to outlive. And if I occasionally hit someone that does out-resource me, then all right, bummer. But
I will. I mean, yes, when you're looking at the data, that's the case. Like, I bailed on Aggro Mage today because I saw enough Renathal Blood DKs and other Renathal decks that I could not burst down. So that's like, in where I am, and I'm just trying to get myself out of it so I can play real decks, right? But where I am, there's still enough people that are doing those things that I can't that I can't do that. And I mean, good for them, right? Like they get to enjoy, they still get to play those decks because they want to, but that's still being played at like the equivalent of like the Diamond 5 floor.
Yeah, I do think
Yeah.
Aggro Mage actually, like specifically as an example, has enough chip damage. You can get there against a lot of health.
My-
I did a co-op today with Number Theory, and we played some Blood DK ourselves, and we beat one Aggro Mage we ended the game at 1, and they ended at 0. And the next game we just got worn down despite Vamp blooding like 3 times or whatever. Even with the Blood Boil on curve, because if they Sivir or Frozen Touches or whatever, or their Prismatic Elemental hits just right. There's a lot of output there, and Egwin on 5 in particular, she is gross. She is so good right now.
My RNG is not that good. I can tell you, because I had a lot of games where I was just sitting there and top decking Trogs and just hating life. And that's when I decided to start playing anything else. So, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe play Mind Warlock. That seems to be the.
I went to Big Spell Mage because I figured at least that, then I don't run out of stuff, and then I just get to do the big things myself.
And I think there are legitimately a lot of things to play right now that all are quite viable, and I think that's really cool. Some things that are less or more popular. I've seen a lot of Evolve Shaman, right? And I think it's honestly a really interesting Evolve Shaman. This is one of the coolest Evolve Shamans I've seen in some time, and generally as a rule I hate Evolve as a mechanic, but I don't know, it's just like you've got
Prescience is a really
Prescience.
cool card, really cool card.
Yeah,
where you just
I
run
guess
this tutor
that's it.
package. It's the 5 minions in the deck. You've got 2 Goldshire Knolls, 2 Colossals. You've got Neptulon and Glug, and then you've got Shadow Hunter Vol'jin, because you swap out either a totem or a piranha for one of your colossals and just poop it into play. It's pretty good. But this is slower than Evolve Scams we're used to, and also a single large minion on turn 3 or turn 4, like, okay. The format can deal with that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot you can do right now, I agree. Pretty much every class has something. Yes, even in Rage Warrior. However, I wish to specifically recognize players that are looking for strategies that are reactive first, that are reactive heavy. There is not something we can honestly recommend right now. There's not anything that has a good, decent win rate that is planning on reacting first. No control paladins, no controller quest priests. No, what else even would there be? Control warlocks, no. And if I try and tell someone, oh, well, you're looking for a control deck, try Spell Demon Hunter, they would laugh in my face. So, because that's just proactive with removal spells, but it's still trying to play stuff and then kill you.
I mean, that being said, right, we were saying the same thing about this long after the last set of nerfs, and then Plague Spreader Priest came out, like, right after that. Right, so like it does take a few days sometimes for the meta to settle and then somebody to figure out a counter. But this meta is so wide open that it's probably going to take a little bit longer to get there if there is something that does work against whatever ends up being what comes out on top in this meta.
Quite possible to find something, and there may still be some matchups that it's just like, yeah, this is polarized, it's rough, but yeah, it just takes development to figure out what tech cards you need, how many of various answers, because you need to have stuff that you expect to be able to plan around it. and so early meta is just tough for control unless the control decks are just too good, which is not the case, right?
And you need to have a way to survive all the from hand damage, which a lot of the control decks are not good at. It's going to probably take something like a Death Knight or a Warrior to be able to build up. Yeah, or Cariel. Yeah, to be. I mean, Cariel's even a little bit too slow a lot of the time against some of these decks.
You need to be able to consistently get your equality clear off.
Yeah, and have like sufficient healing or whatever, and Holy Maki rolls and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I mean, healing is generally like not going to outlast a lot of these, but healing plus some other way to mitigate damage later, whether it be armor or Cariel, is probably going to be the answer. But it's a matter of like letting everything settle again, settle out to condense that meta down so you can have a couple of things that you're contesting. Because I mean, you're always going to lose to some matchups as a control deck, but at least you're trying to like have an angle against like the most popular things so that you can still get a positive win rate.
It is entirely possible that something will show up, but I will say format right now really burn heavy, and also there are still some, I don't know if I call them full combo. Like, I don't know if people are dying from 30 as much, but it still happens. The top decks, if I look at Diamond through Legend, since the patch, Aggro Mage, Curse Imp, Big Spell, Pure Paladin, Beast Hunter, Evolve Shaman, Imp Warlock, Frost DK, Spell D8, Shock Spitter Hunter, and Rage Warrior, Silverhand Paladin, Thief Rogue, Aggro Druid. Not as much here that's going to just like nothing 30, but Aggro Mage, Curse Imp, Spell D8, Shock Spitter, Frost are all very capable of double-digit damage turns pretty easily, and it's really hard to withstand the onboard to offboard paradigm that's going on. A lot of these decks will just whittle you down.
Curse Imp Warlock being the more popular Warlock again is definitely rough for slower decks, because you need to somehow disrupt the curses or be able to deal with their stuff while only really spending one card, right? Just keeping a pretty full hand, because otherwise they just build up too much and you lose to the curses. And that is just harder to deal with than let me clear your board 8 times.
Yeah. I mean, if Priest was still a class, then Svalna would be... I have beaten a Quest Imp Warlock post-nerf with Svalna, because you just keep playing, the permanent card, eventually get your hand filled up, and if your hand has 10 cards in it, then they can't hurt you. But that works against exactly Curse Imp Warlock if you get Svalna on curve, and against basically nothing else right now. So
yeah, it's people haven't figured out control yet, but also I think the scales are tipped pretty hard against them. We will see what adjustments happen in the new year, because we know there will be some, since they alluded to them, and also because they change once a month. For right now, I will say this environment feels very different from Nathria or from Voyage. Really different, really fresh, does not necessarily have something for everybody, but it has a lot of things to try, and there are many things that are being tried out. In addition, they also did a bunch of DK buffs. Oh wait, one more thing. Tome Tampering. Banned in Wild. As any Wild players who face this they know why this happened. Because
Rest in pieces.
I think Mad at Arms was the one who said playing Discard Warlock is like picking up your deck and throwing it at the opponent. Like, which is basically what happens. It's I played this. It's pretty absurd. You just do everything for nothing, and there's just, you play double Cataclysm. Like, no deck that plays double Cataclysm. I had a game where I played Cataclysm and drew 9 cards. Like, come on, you can't do that.
Wait.
3 Hand of Gul'dan.
Works when you destroy it? Oh, Jesus. Yeah, okay.
I didn't have an input play. I just 4 mana to Twisting Nether and draw 9. I made some 2/5s and 3/3s. I dealt 6 damage. I fisted my opponent a couple times. I know what I would just did.
You may want to consider how you phrase that, but yeah.
I did consider it. That's why I said it that way. Fist of Jaraxxus, that is. I know what you all were thinking. So they banned it. It is worth noting that the ban rotation is coming. Stealer Soul is going to be a wild-only card in April. So we'll see what they do. I don't know what they're going to do for all these cards that were banned. Demon Seed rotates in April. What are you going to do with Demon Seed? I don't know. Sounds hard. I'm not a game designer, so I have no idea.
Yeah.
And I don't want to speak to the Wild meta. I have seen tweets today from Wild players that are displeased, and many of them say I miss Renathal. But I don't know. I haven't played. I am too busy with standard work, other stuff. But something that this was at least a good effort.
At least, I mean, we're past the point where they're just like leaving it alone, and not touching wild, right? Like at least they are being proactively addressing some of these outliers in wild, as opposed to before when things like this would go untouched for months.
This was not leave aloneable. Like it was that you couldn't. This was too much to do anything about. Anyways, if you own Signature and Nubricon, you get 1600 dust and you get to keep the card. They said there are probably going to be changes to Signature cards systems in the future. Haven't finalized those, so there may be nerfs to Signature cards in the future that have something different happen, but I am extremely grateful they just gave people the dust here, because it just means this was not an issue. We don't have to talk about it. If they didn't give people dust, we would be talking about it. So, Yeah. They also buffed a bunch of DK cards. Death Knight is a cool new class that many players want to try out, so we're making some adjustments to open them up a little and give them more toys to tinker with. Like with the nerfs, these buffs are designed to be higher confidence. We specifically look for low play rate Death Knight cards that seem primed for upgrades. Plan to take another look in the next Balance Pass. Okay, so I'm going to skip to two cards in particular, because there are 2 cards here that were not buffed for Unholy, and the rest were all buffed for Unholy. Even one of them has 2 blood runes. That's an Unholy card. So, Rhyme Sculptor, the Frost 5-mana 3/3 undead that summoned 2/2/1 elementals that when they died they shot 2 damage missiles. They made that a 4/3. I do not have strong feelings, but
sure,
they did.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it since the buff, and I've seen a lot of Frost Death Knight.
Yeah, is a 5-drop with a couple of pingy dudes, like whatever. And Obliterate. This is an important change. Used to be destroy a minion, your hero takes damage equal to its health. Now it's destroy a minion, your hero takes 3.
Yay.
This is better, because now you want to kill big things with it instead of small things. And killing big things is what you want to play single target removal to do, as opposed to killing a peasant for 2 mana. That is 2 mana, deal 1 damage. That's not all that exciting.
Like you should take extra damage if you're killing a peasant with an Obliterate. Like you should actually have penalty.
But this card's better now. By a lot. By a lot.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's a nice little safety valve in the format. If you get Evolve Scammed or Boon Priested or whatever, you just undo it. It's really nice. It's a good tool for Blood DK to have. Does not feel overpowered. Feels very good. Huge buff to School Teacher. It's a strong card. So, good. Yep. Give DK some strong cards. Blood also got Blood Tap. 2 mana, 2 Blood Rune. It used to be give all minions in your hand +1/+1, spend 3 corpses to give them +1/+1 more. Now it's spend 2 corpses. And you can tell a lot of these changes were to Unholy DK and cards that spend or use corpses somehow, because it's a brand new resource and they didn't quite get it right. So they're pushing it a little bit.
Yeah. This was pretty significant, I think, at least for the way I was building the hand buff Death Knight. You were often corpse starved, right? You really needed the corpses that you got from Soul Stealer. You were spending them pretty quickly. There's, the thing that buffs all your minions in hand by 2 attack spends corpses. This spends corpses. You, depending on how you built it, you didn't have a lot of things because you're trying to make them big, right? And so spending 3 corpses on Blood Tap was kind of a lot. So I definitely noticed the effect of it being 1 cheaper. It felt a lot smoother. That being said, at least the sort of mid-rangey hand buff version that I played just doesn't line up well right now. You don't have great answers to like what Imp Warlock is doing or what Frost Death Knight is doing. It just can be a bit tough, but occasionally you get to pop off, do the thing, and Blood Tap into the taunt that summons 2 copies of itself, and you got a lot of stats.
Yeah, or
Rubian Swarm Guard,
or a Muncher. That Corpse Muncher or whatever, that would probably be pretty good too.
I played a couple games of the Blood and Holy hand buff. Like, it's fun. I like that you can go turn 1 Body Bagger, and then if they kill it, you just Blood Tap on 2. It's let the cards work. It's nice. And all of the other buffs, they were either to base DK cards, that's what I'm calling them if they have no runes. Base, it's only 1 syllable, it's fast to say. Or Unholy rune cards. A lot of them have corpse interactions because Unholy needed the most health. So, Corpse Bride used to be able to spend up to 8 corpses to make something with stats equal to corpses spent. Now you can go up to 10. They moved Stitch Giant from 10 to 9. You know why? So you can Bride Giant on the same turn. Cool. Nice. Malignant Horror. 4 mana 2/4. Reborn. Used to be at the end of your turn, spend 5 corpses to summon a copy of this minion. It is now 4 corpses. I am hearing from my Arena friends that this was already the best DK card in Arena, and they buffed it. They did significantly nerf DK in Arena, but Malignant Horror is crazy over there. Totally ridiculous. Yeah. I played some of this in Standard today. It's not bad. Better than I thought. And you can tell Malignant Horror was designed after the curve of Meat Grinder, which used to be 3 mana 3/4. Battlecry, shred a random minion in your deck to gain 3 corpses. Now it's 4 corpses. So you go Grinder into Horror. Okay. Solid. I get it. Yep. And then Blightfang. I made this joke on Angry Chicken. I don't have enough shame to not make it again. They made it into a spider tank.
No.
It's a spider that is now a spider tank. I guess it's a spider tank. Anyways. It's a 3/4 now, instead of a 3/3. This card was good before, by the way. It was fine.
Yeah.
But I played against a Paladin today, and they had 5 minions, and I won that game. Because then I had 5 minions, and mine had Taunt, and theirs were dead. So, that was fun. I enjoyed that. My opponent, maybe not so much. But yeah, it was turn 5, I think it went Blightfang Plague Strike, and kill your thing, kill your other thing, I get 2/2/2 taunts, and then when you trade with my taunts, they replace themselves from your other minions. Just so powerful. Yeah. And then finally, Imajar Deathbringer. Used to be a 3 mana 3/3 taunt, Death Rattle, spend 3 corpses to make a 3/3 taunt. Now the base copy is a 4/3. Again, sure, I'm having trouble caring. So, but hey, it made him better. DK is a better class now, and most of that is Frost, which the biggest buff to Frost was the nerf to Renathal, and Frost is actually a good deck now, a legitimate, real good deck, and it does not play Rhyme Sculptor. Blood Decay, I think there's still something there, but it doesn't line up quite as well now, but it can be fun, and it's more proactive than a traditional control strategy, I think. And Unholy is still a work in progress, but, was it Lee? Found this today on Twitter where who was this? Lee 1K top 50 with a Renathal and Holy DK. Played it for a couple games. It has a bad Quest DH matchup, but I beat Paladin Rogue with it. I don't know, small sample size, but it felt promising, and someone got top 50 with it. I don't know how many games, but seems like it's enough to justify maybe exploring a little bit.
Yeah, so, maybe there's opportunity to cut that down to 30.
Probably.
But I mean, we're gonna get a mini set in 5-6 weeks, something like that. That might have some more Unholy support in it.
Yeah. I mean, it'll have 3 DK cards. So don't know how they're gonna split it up. I am concerned about runes and card allocations over time. I don't know how they're gonna get to all of them over the course of a year, but they don't have to print triple rune cards every year, so it's possible that they spread things out a little bit. Anyways, that's the patch. At least that is the nerf buff component. There are BG changes as well, some significant ones. So we'll go through this somewhat quickly because we're an hour and 10 minutes into the show already. But this is a small BG change. It's actually a huge one. The most important thing, Toxin moved to 6 from tier 4. Though not a power outlier at most levels, Toxin has a limiting effect on what playstyles feel viable in Murloc lobbies. We are pushing Toxin up to tier 6 as a way to open up some space for more diverse strategies. So, this is substantial. I admit I haven't played a lot of BGs lately. Depending on who you ask, this is either a cool change or not a cool change. The high-level players, and Jakarek is in the Quincy Discord, had a lot of takes on this. We've talked to a few other people in there, Niha, some other high-level players. The high-level players are well, how do I beat an early high roll now? Because it takes forever to get to poison. and I understand that concern. I will say from my perspective as someone that is much lower in the skill level component in BGs, I didn't know how to beat Murlocs. I saw people do it when I watched VODs, but I never figured that out myself. And now I know I don't have to the same way. I have to figure out how do I beat Giant Elementals, which I don't know if that will be better, but it will be different. In addition, they changed some quest configuration. Kidnap Sack harder to earn, Hidden Treasure Vault, and Teal Tiger Sapphire buffed again. Teal Tiger Sapphire, at this point, I assume picking the quest is the criteria for getting the reward, because I don't know how many times they buffed Teal Tiger Sapphire, but I feel like it's literally every single patch. They made the rare quest more frequent: Partner in Crime, Pilfered Lamps, Wondrous Wisdom Ball, Yogtastic Tasties, because quests are going to go away soon, most likely. We don't know that for sure, but this is what I do if quests are going away soon. And so the rare quests are going to be a little bit more frequent. Changed a couple minions in the minion pool. Mechano Tank and Interrogator Whitemane are out. Witchwing, Nest Matron, Mechano Egg, Mithrax, Seafood Slinger are back in. I will note the rewards, or the changes, were in the client. Hooray! I don't know where my applause bumper is. There it is.
Yay.
Battlegrounds players getting told about what changed in their game. Hooray! Very exciting. They nerfed DK in Arena. They fixed a bunch of bugs. Potion Belt can now get two of the same concoction before it could not. The Grim Patron, Gruntle Patron are no longer Risen minions. I think there is just a cap instead. So I think it's 14 now. You can't go infinitely. There's something going on there that they changed how it works. And Astalor has been changed just to clarify the wording so that you know how he works with Bran. It changed from deal 8 more to deal 16 instead, so it is much easier to parse it as a replacement effect. This only matters if you care about debating Hearthstone words, so our listeners are very interested, but your average person will not notice or care about any changes here because the functionality did not change. That's the patch. All right. Now for everything else in the show. Good luck, us. Let's see. So, the legendary skin, if you bought Sylvanas, it said unique hero power animation in the description. However, what they meant was unique animated hero portrait action when you hero power. It was not an animated hero power. It was an animation from the animated portrait when you hero powered. The wording was unclear and said animated hero power. They changed the wording. However, that also means they changed what the product was advertising. So, if you bought the Arthas bundle or the Sylvanas bundle, and you change your mind, you decide you don't want them anymore, you may get a refund. As long as you purchase before the clarification, you may get a refund. So there's a link to customer service.
When you do that, do they take away the portrait at that point? Like you're not gonna keep the portrait at that point. Like,
no,
they're gonna
it is
remove
not.
it from your account. Yeah.
If you decide the product is no longer what you were expecting, you may give them back the product, and they will give you back your money.
Yeah.
Yep. It's they don't let you keep it, but they let you give it back. So if you decide you felt misled by the description, you want to undo your purchase, customer service will handle that. Okay. Winter Veil, the event is live. You'll see it in the client. By the way, it has Battlegrounds requirements and Battlegrounds rewards because this quest is designed to hook into the Battlegrounds pass pre-order, which you can do now. You can pre-order the next season pass. So, of course, they are using the quests to give you free stuff and also advertise the product. So that's what's happening here. You do not have to play BGs to finish this because if you just play a lot of Hearthstone, you'll finish this quest anyways. I have found these to be quite easy to finish, the rewards tracks. But the event quest, I think, is play 2 games of Battlegrounds. If you want to play 2 games of BGs, it doesn't really take that long. But if you don't, and you still want the stuff, including the BG skin on the pass, all you got to do is do the daily that pops up in there and play some Hearthstone. And it'll happen naturally. And if you don't want the stuff, then you don't have to. It's free. It's whatever. I have seen some people that are truly, upset that they're being given BG's things for when they just want to play Standard, but It's just more free stuff. So, like, you don't have to play BGs. You don't need to get this stuff, but you can have it even without playing BGs.
I would argue they're probably not upset about there being BG stuff in there. I think they're upset about the BG stuff replacing what they thought were going to be constructed things, like constructed portraits. That
I guess
would
so,
be
but
the way I would interpret that. The way that I would interpret that.
But we never had events before, and we just would have had nothing here instead.
Yeah, I mean, the last event had a constructed portrait at the end of it.
Right, but we had 2 events this month. Can't remember the last
know,
time we had 2
it's-
events in a month.
Yeah. I'm not agreeing with them. I'm just saying I'm trying to put myself in their head and explain their point of view. That's all. But yeah, I mean, it's free stuff. Fine. If you don't like, if you were gonna play constructed anyway, just play constructed. You'll probably get it. Like I haven't even been particularly trying. I'm already like 2/5 of the way down. So, and I haven't played any BGs this month.
Same. Yeah, I think I'm about 400, and there are 13 days left, and I did one of the quests in there, and also the rest of my quests in Hearthstone. Like, the event tracks are so easy to complete without even thinking about it. I've been pleasantly surprised by. I don't think I've finished. You know how they have the 5 event quests, like preset event quests.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've done the 5th one on any of the events. I don't even know if I've done the 4th one on any of the events so far. I just play a bunch of games, and it's like, oh, this is done now. So yeah. The esports announcement. We did not get an announcement about what esports program is coming. We did get a tweet saying, hey, the details will be published next year. The current working theory that a lot of people are working on, are going with, is that the NetEase deal hit this significantly. Probably accurate.
Yeah.
Seems somewhat likely that changed things. But yeah, we don't have details in 2023 Hearthstone Esports. And so that means December ladder doesn't count. They didn't say January ladder doesn't count, so I assume it does, but December ladder does not.
And placements in seasonals or masters tours or worlds don't count either. There's no carryover. Abar did say that. So if you got to worlds, that doesn't guarantee you like a placement in the next whatever the next big tournament is. It doesn't guarantee you a placement. Everyone's gonna have to qualify.
That's somewhat concerning.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see, there's only 16 of them, right? Like, I would like to see them competing in whatever the next thing is. But I'm sure at least some of them will be. I mean, there's definitely, from the tweets that came out after Worlds, there are some people who were kind of going into this being their last tournament one way or the other, I think. But
yeah, I mean, Bunny was probably planning on that and then made $100,000 and won. So I wouldn't be surprised if that threw a little wrench in his plans. But, So, our last 2 more news items. BlizzCon's coming back in 2023. We don't know when, but we know it's coming. Very excited. Looking forward to it. Pretty stoked.
I have still never been to a BlizzCon, and the year that I was planning on it was 2020. So,
well, we will get some good burgers, and we will talk about cards, and we will play some games, and we will
see Boticus.
Yeah.
Yes. Very excited for that.
And maybe I can lure you both to Disneyland this time.
The
Too
one
many lines.
time I met Boticus in person was HCT Oakland, and it was obviously way before I was on the show.
That's a long time
ago. Yeah. What, 2017?
That sounds right.
Yeah. Oof.
Man, that's a minute. Well, I'm looking forward to going to BlizzCon whenever it is. And finally, we have an interview from Leo, aka Minty Fresh, and Daman, who's the VFX lead. He goes by Quiet Bastion on Twitter. Has an adorable cat, and the talking about making Hearthstone cards in 2022. Pretty cool to see. So check out that article, linked in the show notes. Hey, we just talked about Worlds. Let's continue doing that.
It's the grand tournament!
Yeah, so we had Worlds, and it was very long because there were a lot of priest mirrors. But we did have Worlds. Bunny Hopper again, the big winner. The finals actually came down to Bunny Hopper and Deaddraw, who are both. It was, first of all, it was an all European final. Also, they're both teammates on Team Liquid, who also, by the way, as we talked about on the show a week or two ago, is dissolving their Hearthstone team. So I probably a little bit interesting that this one team had both finalists and no longer has a team, but it makes sense not given what is going on with the scene, but still kind of a weird thing. But and the final ended up coming down to, as kind of was appropriate for the weekend, came down to an hour and 15-minute long priest mirror. And I know I am a person who will enjoy those types of things because I am, as we've already discussed, a broken human. But in terms of like wanting to see high level play, like I'm honestly putting that up there, just that one game up there with like the Tystos Kaka Freeze Mage mirror, where Tice was like pinging his own face at one point in the game in order to, I don't even remember what the math was that he was working around because it was so long ago. But there was something that involved him pinging his own face to, I think, probably playing around Ice Block or something. And this had kind of the same thing because the Priest Mirror is going to fatigue, right? Like neither deck has a win condition really, and your win conditions are basically infinite metas, and you get Svalna as early as you can, and you start trying to discover drowns to put yourself further ahead in fatigue, or Amulet of Undying to make ideally more metas. And of course your opponent has silences, and there are ways you can get around that. There's some things you can do, like Finleying the fragments of meta back into your hand in order to preserve one in case your whole board gets silenced, or in case you overdraw them when you have a full board because the fragments go away. There's a lot going on in that mirror, and Bunny ended up actually, after he loaded a bunch of fragments into his deck, was holding a hand of 10 cards intentionally to burn the fragments of meta because they are cast when drawn. But so if you have nothing but fragments of meta in your deck, when you draw one, you draw all of them. If you burn it, then it stops. So he was actually going through, I mean, it wasn't particularly hard because hand space concerns were a thing throughout the entire game, but actually having that presence of mind to realize that if he filled up his hand, he would stop the fatigue and then buy himself a few more turns, and then eventually did wear Dare Draw down in the Priest Mirror and won that match 3-1. Interestingly, a lot of the rogues that were making it to the final for Yuyi and Levick were the other quarterfinal or semifinalists rather. Were Thief Rogue. They weren't Death Rattle or Miracle Rogue. And the priests, 3 out of the 4 were Plague Spreader Priest. There was one. Levick was the only one out of the top 4 who had Boon Priest, and I believe Yuyi was the only one who had Death Rattle Rogue. But the other 3 were Thief Rogues, Renathal Thief Rogues, and then Plague Spreader Priests. And of course, Quest Demon Hunter was the deck of the weekend because often the priests or the rogues were the ones that were getting banned, so the Demon Hunters were typically getting through. So there were a lot of Demon Hunter mirrors. Demon Hunter was generally able to win a lot of those matchups, and the XL Ping Mage was also another deck that was very popular because it was able to tech against a lot of what the other decks were trying to do. Like there was one game where I think it was Deaddraw had solid alibis like 5 turns in a row against or either was Solid Alibi or Mass Polymorph, one or the other. I think it was Solid Alibi like 5 turns in a row, and he had like multiple Mass Polymorphs loaded into a Grey Sage Parrot to be able to deal with Death Rattle Rogue. But that mage deck ended up being very popular, or it performed very well in the top 4 as well. And that was another one that I believe all 4 of the top 4 had. Oh no, a Levick had a 30 card version, but they all had some flavor of Ping Mage as well. So it's a tournament. I think that, you know, even if you just kind of skip the first half of the Priest Mirror, I think it's still a game worth watching. Just to kind of see the high level strategies that were there. And I mean, you know, congratulations to Bunny Hopper. Bunny Hopper's been there in Grandmasters since the beginning. Actually got relegated out of Grandmasters at one point because he got so sick that he couldn't compete for an extended period of time. I think this was pre-COVID. Got sick enough that he wasn't able to really compete at the high level, and then was able to qualify back into Grandmasters through Masters Tour winnings. And it's just great to see somebody who's been around the scene for this long and really been dedicated to them and been a mainstay of the scene be able to finally take that world championship, knowing how long he's been working at that. So it was actually kind of cool with Deaddraw, who's been kind of like the perennial just outside of Grandmasters until very recently. Like he was winning Masters Tours and always just like missed out on GM by like, you know, a couple of points. But being able to see him get to that final as well, and obviously teammates and friends playing against each other in that kind of a series was really cool. It was a really good world. Thankfully the Death Knight thing wasn't an issue, and we got to see some cool games, even if they did last quite a while.
Oh, man, the jokes about, oh look, it's a Death Knight, when Thief Rogue would disguise themselves through Maestra as Death Knight were pretty solid. Was kind of a bummer this was happening at the same time as the World Cup, but you know, we got some nice subtle football commentary, which is always enjoyable. I was glued to this World Championship though. I think in general I haven't been watching as much Hearthstone, but I'm a huge fan of Bunny Hopper, and obviously Deaddraw also deserves a ton of respect for just the consistency. And even though I like Plague Spreader makes me want to puke, it was really, really incredible final series, and the fact that it came down to, it didn't go to five games, but it did come down to
Felt
this,
like it.
right? But it did come down to this Priest Mirror. Bunny was up 2-1, so the fact that he won it, of course, made him the victor. There was an interesting discussion of if it went to the turn timer, Bunny would actually win still, because that would involve both players getting a game win, and so being up 2-1 means that the person who's ahead just wins the match. So, I mean, to some extent, like that may have sort of affected how things went out, because Deaddraw had to play to win, and Bunny just had to play to not lose. And part of it was the draw as well. Bunny had Svalna very early, and so was getting all this extra value, especially drowns, which, since it goes to fatigue, that's a big deal. And so Deaddraw was playing a lot more for tempo, which is not the spot you want to be in, but yeah, seeing how Bunny was able to stave off fatigue by burning the shards. I was honestly surprised, although I guess there's pretty significant drawback, but another way you can stave off fatigue is by using Finley to basically shuffle your hand into your deck once you're out of cards. You can either do it when you're low on cards, so you still get some things back, or you can do it when there's nothing left and it's just like, I've got enough stuff going on, let me just discard my hand just to not lose in fatigue, but pretty big drawback. I don't think it's for everyone, but if you do enjoy seeing that like really high level play, a huge recommend.
Yeah, you could probably watch that game on like 1.5 speed, right? Like
yeah.
Like that's the benefit of not watching it live, is you can speed it up. And I am kind of glad that it didn't go to the turn timer, because I think that would have been very anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Way for this to end. That you know, Bunny did actually find a way to win that game in the end, and it didn't have to go to the turn timer to decide it, because that would have felt awful.
It's It is the perfect example of a game that I never would have been in that board state. I never would have queued that matchup. I never would have wanted to play that out. I never would have made any of those decisions. And seeing it live and watching people make those calls and seeing his game plan play out was intense and inspiring. Just,
Yeah.
I couldn't have processed getting to this game state, but it was so brilliantly executed. And I was watching closely for every turn, even though it was a priest mirror. It was an hour and a half priest mirror, but it was not the game I would want to play, but it was absolutely the game I would want to watch a couple times. Like, it's here and there. I wouldn't want the whole tournament to be priest mirrors, right? If this was specialist and it was all priest mirrors all day, I never would have watched. But this was the finals. This was it. And it was a pretty intense, slow burn ending. Really incredible emotion on display from Bunny at the end. He's been around forever. Well deserved.
Yeah.
Great guy. Super nice. It was a spectacular finals.
Yeah. It's kind of like American Ninja Warrior when they get down to like the playoffs and like the obstacle courses just get like that much more insane, right? Like that's kind of how that priest mirror, it felt like a fitting way to end that tournament, just like with that priest mirror. And I mean, it really did get to show off like how much that, how like I play a lot of priest mirrors. I would have lost that game every time. Like there's just like a different level, and just like seeing the kinds of things and also seeing like the preparation that had to be there. Like just imagine you're bringing priest to Worlds and you have like a week between like the nerfs and the actual event, and you have to practice the priest mirror to know how to win it, right? Like that's the thing that because Buddy clearly did. He clearly played a lot of that mirror, and it's like he had to spend like a full day just jamming like 10 games of priest, right? That's dedication.
It is one of the many skills that I lack to be a professional Hearthstone player. If I was presented with the need to play test the priest mirror to be successful, I would choose a different career. I would do something else. But Bunny is just like, no, I'm going to win the fatigue priest mirror and also be a doctor. Good for him.
Yeah.
It's a good tournament to watch. And then the day after the tournament ended, they massacred every deck that was on display. So if you want a time capsule of why they did the nerfs they did, the footage in that tournament will tell you. There was a lot of Quest EH where you watched that tournament and you're like, I understand why they did what they did. It wasn't hard to figure out why they nerfed Quest EH. I think it was Yuyi who his Jace got Plague Spreadered, and he still won on turn 8 against a Plague Spreader Priest from 44 damage, despite hitting fatigue on that turn 8.
Yep. I don't mind those nerfs. That's fine. Get out. That's fine.
I mean, when one Relic of Dimensions hits the other and another location, you go through the deck pretty quick.
Yeah. It was fun to watch. And listener, we have realized now, 90 minutes into the show, hey, maybe a Dexplanations on top of this might be more than we need to do when next week is going to be a quieter week in terms of what's happening, in terms of news. So good call, Edelweiss. Next week, our plan here is year in review. Maybe take some of your questions that we can find the time, and we have a nice Dexplanations prepared that we alluded to earlier. Raw Rank sent in a question about when do you go in and pop-off turns. That deserves more time than we're going to be able to give it in the last 20 minutes here. So we're going to save this for next week, and we're going to have a svelte 90-minute show here for you during...
about one priest mirror.
Yes, actually. In honor of Bunny Hopper, the length of the priest mirror. But I think we're going to start winding down this episode, and we're going to have more content for you next week. So we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at coincd.com. You can find our contact info, show notes, Patreon information. You can monetarily support us over at patreon.com/coinconcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconceit.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconceit.com. Right into our email at coinconceit@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coinconceit. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coinconceit. Like some CC swag, heading over to our shop at shop.coinconceit.com. Big thanks to our producers, Number Theory, Doge GK, Crash Cat, B Squatch, David P, Faded Black, Wildoo, Jeremy T, Bottle Caps, Lucky, Grumpy Monk, and Krebmart. Grey Lego and D Finberg, thank you so much for the subs. Coin Concedes. Edelweiss, you go first.
So my first coin concede is to my wife for kind of, as I was going insane trying to finish this cosplay, sort of giving me permission to decide, hey, it's sunk cost. I know you put a lot of time and money into this, but it's okay if you don't make it for the deadline. Like, you can just make it as a cool thing later. Maybe I can wear it to BlizzCon next year. That would be sweet. Now it's back and wear the Death Knight cosplay. But I was gonna have to go full finals mode, which would mean like 5-hour energy and 3 hours of sleep a night, and I could not do that while also providing support and taking care of my nephew and like all the other things that I have to do now. I can't just go full degen mode, and that was just, it was so much stress that I had put entirely on myself trying to finish this thing. So that was very necessary, and I would have had trouble convincing myself on my own. I don't like giving up. And then a coin concede as well to you, Wicked Good, for suggesting players and telling me when it was available for
did
free
you watch it?
on YouTube. Oh man, we finished it, and Rachel was in. Like, no gaming, no esports, nothing. Right? This is entirely outside her wheelhouse, and the drama and everything is just so enthralling. And it was a very excellent distraction from a bit of a medical scare. I don't know if emergency isn't the right word, but medical scare we had earlier, and we're gonna have news next week. Hopefully everything's okay. But it was just like, we need some comedy, we need something to take our mind off stuff. And Players was great for that.
Oh, that's good.
I can't wait for season 2. It seems like
Yeah.
they definitely set up a season 2.
Yeah, like that was Maureen too. Like Maureen has no interest in League whatsoever, and then after that she's like, oh yeah, we're gonna like, let's watch LCS. It's on. Like, okay, that lasted a week, but it was still like,
yeah.
But she was all into it, and yeah, that show was good. Like, it's on Players. It was on Paramount Plus. It's a mockumentary about a fictitious LCS team throughout like a season, and it's on YouTube now. So it won some esports awards, so they put all the episodes up on YouTube for free. Go watch it before they take it down. It's really, really, really good.
So much fun, and it helped give her some insight as well into like why I loved this game and was so big into League in college.
Yeah,
because I think from the outside it can be really hard to understand when you're just like, well, why do you stay up so late and like get mad at your computer? Like, it's
The understanding begins.
Yeah, there's just something about playing with a team that you really jive with, and like all working towards a goal.
Steve, coin concedes.
Oh, I'm gonna coin concede to Tito the Toucan, who is apparently a Squishable that has taken up permanent residence on our couch after a recent trip to Costco. So it is a Squishable that's about as big as one of my children, and it just sits on the couch and it lives there now, and it's its couch. So, yeah, that's my life now. Yeah. But in all seriousness, I'm gonna coin concede to Megasa because we had a 2-hour Plague Spreader Priest coaching session on Saturday, which she messaged me right beforehand and said, I just tested positive for COVID. I think we should reschedule. And I said, sure, fine. And then she messaged me about a half hour later. She's like, no, I took some Advil. I'm good. Let's do it. And we still, despite COVID, still did a 2-hour session. I think we climbed, I'm pretty sure, a fair amount. So, it was it was productive and also makes it feel better, and hopefully that's you know, on the mend, because that did not sound fun, especially toward the end. But yeah. I mean, I guess if you're delirious from COVID, then playing 2 hours of Priest is probably more entertaining. I don't know.
There's some inherent cosmic irony in like a plague spreader coaching with COVID. It's definitely there. I'm not going to go hunting for it. I think it's funny enough.
It's committing to the
by
bit.
itself.
It's committing
Yeah.
to the bit, right? Like it's just going all in. It's like method acting, right? So
Yeah, we'll go with that. And so that means the nerf, she's cured. It's fixed.
yeah, yeah.
Good. I'm glad she's
Let's,
feeling
we
better.
nerfed COVID. We did it.
Yes. Yes. So, anyways, I have a few coin concedes. Forrest Bates, coin concede number 1, had he has had some strong Renathal feelings over the expansion, but gave a pretty interesting rundown of it over in the Squelch Discord, actually, and talking about how the impact on podcast discourse that strong neutrals give, and I found it very, very interesting to listen to, and gave some good insight. And considering that, if the concern is that discourse is too samey, I am in a unique position in the Hearthstone space to try and have an impact there. I told him I would make a good faith effort to learn different accents from my different shows, but I'm probably not going to do that. But Forrest, thank you for sharing. Really interesting conversation. Brasky, he's a cool dude. We've been talking this week. He's been helping me with some stuff. And Scoos and Rawrang for giving us some content for both a question for this week's show and a question that we were going to do, but then we talked too much and we're going to save it for next week's. But really interesting stuff. Thank you so much for asking us that. And we're going to try and hopefully have more opportunity next week for listener questions. And that's going to do it. So keep calm and I don't know. Have a happy holiday, everyone. If you see us on the ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
Right. We made it.
We
Yeah,
did it.
that was a good call, because we could have had a 2.5 hour episode, but we also could have not. We also could have not. done that.
Yeah.
Little selfish. I was like, oh god, I really don't want to edit a 2 hour 15 minute
it's,
episode
it's
again.
I was
a good
definitely
idea.
starting to feel myself starting to run out of energy towards the end too. So like that.
It would like we
That- I
don't
think that was
need
a
to
good call.
spend an extra 40 minutes in ad hoc explanations, and this is actually this works because we're holding our pop off turn until the right time.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. It has layers. Still feel like we gave
Wait.
people plenty of content.
So
I don't think anybody's gonna feel like we cheated them this episode. No.
Hat, aren't you glad that you only edit 2 of 3 of the top Hearthstone podcasts?
Yes. Yes, I am. It's the amount of audio editing I have already signed myself up for on a weekly basis is kind of deranged, and I
me
should
know if
point
you need
concede to
help.
you every week. It's, I mean, I did need help. That's why I taught you how to do it.
I mean, for
I desperately
one of
needed the
other
help
ones.
because this is the hardest one because it's got 3 hosts and is the longest running time. Like 2 host shows are way easier.
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
I used to do
I
that
got-
all the
the
time
only
on
re-
Relay, and it was with 4
Terrible.
hosts every week. Oh,
That's awful. I think the only reason my 2-host one is like harder is because
Because you
it's
make it
much
harder.
more highly, because well, it's a much more highly produced product, and at this point, like that's what the product is.
yeah.
And that's the reason we have our episodes being played on Jungian anthology, is because it's a really finished product. So I can't
It's,
can't go easy on it now.
it's like it's a professional product, but like you're not a professional editor. You are capable of editing at a professional level, but I don't know how much you get paid. It's probably less than you could if you did that as your job.
It is. Yeah, it is. It is nothing.
There you go. I always wondered, like, what would it be like if I started pursuing editing jobs now, like, or if you started
Probably-
pursuing editing jobs?
I have
You could do
seriously
audio
considered
production,
it.
yeah.
I have, yeah, it's definitely something I've thought about.
Because you're building your resume, right? Like, it's this show is you building your resume. You link to this and be like, I can make this happen.
Yeah.
Also, yeah,
I mean, there are plenty of people who like want to have a professional sounding podcast and just don't have the time to learn how to do it. And you could probably, charge them a good amount per like minute of audio.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
just have
and-
to. I just have to not be taking care of my nephew as well.
Well, yeah, I mean that's yeah, and I mean that's hard when there's a kid screaming in the background. It makes it hard to hear the things you're supposed to edit out. But
Now,
maybe that Adobe
ideally,
podcast thing will help too.
ideally, my kid, I'll just be able to throw in a sling and
Yeah.
do whatever. That's because I'm gonna be a very
Okay.
different approach. We'll see.
Yep.
We'll see. Hopefully, I get lucky. It's
I thought that too. Yep.
look. I'm at least part of the genetics. Maybe they will do the same quiet thing. It's possible.
Yeah, I mean, you could high roll. It happens.
I like didn't speak for 18 years or whatever.
18 years.
Come on, buddy. Let's be realistic here.
Yeah, Rachel is pretty talkative.
You can be happy when you invitation to Sethino, but don't build a deck around it. All right, everyone. I'm gonna bring the stream down. My upload speed is not happy about trying to upload this audio while I'm doing it, but thank you very much for y'all being here, and we will see you after the Christmas holiday and the conclusion of Hanukkah and, the weekend. Bye!
Bye.